You've been driving for 14 hours. Your eyes are heavy, the highway is empty, and you pull off to find a place to sleep. Your headlights sweep across a cracked asphalt parking lot, illuminating a flickering neon sign. You hand $50 to an indifferent clerk, take a heavy brass key, and walk to your room. There are no security guards, no cameras, and your front door opens right out into the dark, public lot. Online message boards are full of true encounters from these roadside stops. A man in Ohio waking up to a masked intruder standing at the foot of his bed. A family in a flooded town stalked by silent whispers and blue lights slipping under their doorframe. A traveler finding an open room next door, a glowing TV, and a handwritten note daring him to check under the bed. Society usually dismisses these as urban legends. Calculated predators look at the exact physical and economic layout of a budget motel and see an ideal hunting ground. Examining these physical vulnerabilities reveals the specific ways a budget layout can be weaponized against a guest. When you stay at a standard hotel, you have to pass through a brightly lit lobby. There is a staffed front desk, multiple security cameras, and a dedicated entry point. It creates a secure choke point that deters anyone who doesn't belong. Roadside motels often skip this step completely. In the stories from Ohio and the flooded town, the night clerks were completely isolated from the guests. One man barely looked up from his newspaper to hand over a key, and another manager refused to walk onto the property to inspect a report of suspicious activity. Operating on a $50 nightly rate leaves no room for security personnel, updated camera systems, or active patrols. Anyone looking to break into a room factors this into their attack. They operate with the knowledge that the single employee on duty is likely locked in a booth on the far side of the property. If you scream in a room at 2 in the morning, the front desk is not coming to help. This economic model strips away the institutional protection we take for granted. It creates a social vacuum where you're responsible for securing your own perimeter. Looking at this blueprint, comparing a standard interior layout to a motel's exterior walkway, you can see how exposed that perimeter really is. Because motel rooms face directly into a parking lot, anyone can walk right up to your front door without ever crossing a central monitoring point. This easy exterior access enables a tactic we see in the Ohio story. The man in the bed woke up to a loud thump at his window. A stranger was standing right outside, claiming to be injured and begging to be let in. This is a lure. The attacker uses the window to gauge the occupant's empathy and gullibility. If the victim opens the door to help, the attacker gets inside without making a sound or forcing a lock. But when the traveler in Ohio ignored the plea, the attacker simply shifted tactics. The traveler had already noticed his door lock required forceful shimmying just to close. The attacker easily bypassed that degraded hardware, slipped in quietly, and robbed the room while the man slept. We see similar testing in the flooded town encounter. The attackers used the thin walls to scratch near the bed frame, and they flashed bright blue lights through the wide cracks under the door, trying to see if the occupants were awake before rattling the handle. The combination of zero exterior monitoring and severely degraded hardware turns these cheap rooms into fragile boxes. They provide the illusion of shelter, but they are easily bypassed by a persistent threat. If the physical barriers hold up, attackers will sometimes escalate by weaponizing the environment itself. We see this play out in the mountain trip story. A traveler walking to his room noticed the neighboring door standing wide open. Inside, a television was glowing blue. A completely open door at night is deeply unsettling, and it acts as an irresistible lure for human curiosity. He carefully stepped into the empty room to investigate. Sticking right to the center of the blank, glowing screen was a single yellow note. It read, "Check under the bed." Obeying that instruction requires the victim to walk away from the exit, kneel down, and put their face near the floor. It forces them into a deeply vulnerable physical position, making it effortless for someone hiding in the dark bathroom or closet to launch an ambush. By setting up the room this way, the attacker didn't have to force their way in at all. They used curiosity and obedience to walk the victim straight into a trap. The true horror of these stories stems from their mechanical, real-world simplicity. When you hand over cash for a budget roadside stop, you are paying for anonymity. But that same fraction of a price buys an attacker total privacy from security, management, and the law. Indifferent management, exposed architecture, and degraded hardware create a space where a guest is entirely on their own. The next time you find yourself exhausted on a long road trip and you pull under a glowing neon vacancy sign, recognize the environment you are stepping into. Check the physical condition of your locks, close the blinds tightly, and secure your own perimeter.